And we are back. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. So, we have finally made it. Ladies and gentlemen, after nearly 8 long months of being stuck in week 0, the wait is finally over. It is finally week 1, game week 1. I'm still ill, as you can probably tell from my voice, and I've also spent the weekend moving my parents into their new house. But fuck it, sorry for my French. The Cleveland Browns are back. Football is back. Before we get into, of course, all things Bengals and the outlook for the Cleveland Browns in 2025 all throughout this week, as I am in such a good mood despite being ill, because of obviously Browns football being back, I wanted to kick off this week's videos with all the things that I am excited about this season. Now, don't worry, I'm not that much of a homer. We will, of course, discuss, all the deficiencies, all the problems with the team that has, of course, led to, all the betting sites having us as one of the worst teams in the NFL this year, which I could disagree with, but, there's still a reason for that. I, of course, will talk about all of that as we preview the Bengals and of these, this season later in the week. But as I said, for now, I'm in a good mood, and I want everyone watching to also be in a good mood. So let's talk about all the things I am excited about for the 2025 Cleveland Browns. 2025 has a ring to it. Now, this is in no particular order. I'll be honest, completely gonna just go off the dome and just go what comes to me. As I said, I'm in a good mood. I'm feeling good. I just want to talk about things that I'm looking forward to this year. So no particular order, whatever comes to the head first. But of course, I say that the very first one is the only one that will be in order, and that is the biggest thing I am most excited for the Cleveland Browns in 2025. And that is watching Andre Schmidt. No, I'm kidding. It is the defense, of course. When you have Myles Garrett on your defense, it's pretty hard not to look forward to watching it. But when it's also as good as I expect the Cleveland Browns defense to be this year, I am very, very excited. It all starts with the defensive line, which, is the best room by far, probably, on the roster. This is one of the most loaded Browns defensive lines I can remember. This is probably the most loaded, Browns defensive line that Myles Garrett's had in his career. Yes, they haven't got that second name value person next to him in Olivier Vernon, obviously Clowney, or Zadarius Smith. But just in terms of the depth and all of the pieces around him across the whole defensive line, that's edge and interior guys as well. This is probably the most loaded defensive line that Myles Garrett has played on, and it obviously, as I mentioned, starts with Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in the world, whatever works. He is the best pass rusher in the NFL. The best defensive player in the NFL. At this point, not many people can argue against it. Not many people do argue against it. When you get to watch Myles Garrett every single Sunday, you should consider yourself very grateful because you are watching the best, to do it every single Sunday. Myles has been consistent in his whole career. The first player ever with, 5 seasons with 14 plus sacks, has managed to stay, somewhat healthy despite, crashing his car and all sorts. But Myles Garrett, when he's playing, pardon me, there goes the throat for the first time. When he's playing, Myles Garrett is the best defensive player and one of the most fun defensive players to watch. So Myles Garrett, the defensive line, obviously Mason Graham as well, someone that I expect to be, maybe in that defensive rookie of the year kind of debate towards the end of the year. Someone that if he stays healthy this year, just, just playing in this defensive line. Miles is obviously going to get most of the attention. He is Miles, and there's other guys on this defensive line that command attention as well. Mason Graham is going to eat. This man is going to see the least amount of attention he has ever seen in a football game, going all the way back to probably when he first put on a helmet. This guy is going to get as clear a lane to the quarterback as he ever has when it comes to the pass rush. And obviously Mason Graham, a solid run stopper as well, someone that is not just one do this or do that. This is an every down interior defensive lineman. This is a guy that, fuck it, you might even be able to put him on edge. I generally wouldn't be shocked if he could get a good rep out there. I expect Mason Graham to eat this year. I expect him to be an impact player as a rookie. That's why they traded back, felt comfortable giving away the chance to draft Travis Hunter so they could draft Mason Graham. I am incredibly excited to watch Mason Graham this year. And as I mentioned, just the whole defensive line as a whole, Alex Wright, Isaiah Maguire, two guys that, I've been big fans of the last 2 years, guys that have impressed me as, where they were drafted. These aren't first round picks, not even second round picks. These aren't guys that you drafted to, even expect. Once you go past the second and third round, these guys aren't expected to be on your roster for very long. So to get what they've gotten out of these guys and what it looks like they will continue to get and what these guys will continue to develop into is just so exciting. And, Isaiah Maguire, will he start? Will Alex Wright start? I don't even care at this point. I think they're both good enough to have that role, but they're both going to see a lot of the field this year. And I am, of course, incredibly excited to see that. The guys around them, Joe, Tyron, Shaniqua, Cameron Thomas, let's see what those guys have as well. And then obviously the interior guys as well. As I mentioned, this defensive line, it's partly because of the mix of those outside guys and the interior guys as well. I mean, Mason Graham, Malik Collins, two guys that can, rush the passer at a high level. On the interior, Shelby Harris, Mike Hall Jr. when he comes back. Of course, Aiden Huntington as well. So, the defensive line is going to be one of the most fun areas of this team, one of the strongest areas, the strongest area on this team. Cannot wait to watch this defensive line. And the rest of the defense as well. Carson Schlesinger, the linebacker. Wow. I mean, what an incredible, first training camp and preseason. Genuinely some of the best play I've seen from a Browns rookie since I've been following the Browns. This guy has genuinely been so good. Someone that has been that good and has been talked about that highly that, I expect him to get the most snaps of anyone in that linebacker room, despite the fact that he's a rookie. How long is it going to take for him to wear the green dot? Probably not that long. The Browns found a future linebacker that, whether hopefully JOK can play again in his career. Hopefully he comes back next year. Of course, we're all got our fingers crossed for that. But in the complete unfortunate thing that he can't, the Browns have found another JOK level player at the linebacker position, in my opinion, in Carson Schlesinger. I do think he's going to be that good, and he's just so fun to watch because he is just everywhere. Where just find the ball and you will find Carson Schlesinger. He will be around that ball at all times. What a fun player! What a great pick it's looking like it's going to be. Really excited to watch Carson Schlesinger, and then the secondary. Of course, you'd probably argue is the weakest part of this defense, probably gets the least amount of love. But, similar with Myles Garrett, maybe not to the same level. But when you get to watch Denzel Ward every Sunday, and I know all the people that, think he's injury prone and say, well, he doesn't play every Sunday. He's never missed more than 4 games in a season. So pretty much every Sunday, it truly is a pleasure to watch. Denzel Ward is one of the best to do it at the cornerback positions, one of the hardest positions to play in the NFL. Watching someone like Denzel Ward that just has that rare combination of, not only is he a good cover corner, not only is he a good man corner, probably better in man and probably one of the, if not the best man corners in the NFL, but he's also got the speed to match any wide receiver in the NFL as well. Just a rare combination of all the kind of assets that you need to be a great cornerback. He has the reason he is so good is because he has a combination of them all at a high level. Denzel Ward is a top 5 cornerback in the NFL. Any of those guys are fun to watch, and that includes Denzel Ward. Cannot wait to watch him. And then, one shout out for Aiden Huntington. I did mention him, but, this is a guy that impressed so much as an undrafted rookie. He's been given the 98 shirt. I mean, shit, let's see. I truly believe Aiden Hunterton is going to be our undrafted free agent that, every other team, it seems to have it happened to them, in the last kind of few years where they get a guy come through. We're going to have our guy. I think Aiden Hunterton is going to be someone that is going to make plays for this team this year. I am so excited, and where he makes plays, that's the fun part. Is it going to be on defense? Is it going to be on special teams? Hell, is it going to be on offense? Who knows? It's going to be an absolute, pleasure to watch regardless. I tweeted out a joke that, everyone's moaning that the Browns are going to be, unbearable to watch and all of this stuff, whereas I'll be sat there while the Browns are 2-10 watching Aiden Hunterton chase someone down on a as the gunner, on a punt return, and I'd just be so excited by that regardless, which is obviously a joke. I would not be excited about the Browns being 2-10. But Aiden Hunterton, I am excited to watch. Moving on, that's the defense. As I said, I probably won't spend as much time on all the other ones as I did on that one, because that is what I am the most excited to. But what's next? What else am I excited for? The Browns returning to Kevin Stefanski's offense. What we saw last year was unbearable to watch, to say the least. Even the year before that wasn't much better. Returning to Stefanski's offense, and that and the moves that they have made, that raises the floor offensively, in my opinion, and as a team as a whole. It's easier for everything to go tits up when the entire offense is designed around one guy, whereas running the ball, throwing on play action, protecting the ball, these are all things that are keys to Kevin Stefanski's offense, and things that raise an offense's floor. This also applies to the moves they've made on defense as well. To be honest, it's why I don't think that the Browns will be as bad as a lot of people seem to think. They've invested in the areas that raise your floor as a football team and as an overall team, and that decreases the likelihood, in my opinion, of bottoming out like they did last year, of course, going 3-14. So happy and excited to see them return to Kevin Stefanski's offense over what they've been trying the last 2 years with Deshaun Watson. Speaking of the offense, Joe Flacco. Excited to see Joe Flacco for now. No, I'm somewhat kidding. All seriousness, I am definitely excited to watch him go up against that Bengals defense week 1, for sure. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Let's see what he can do week 1, and let's obviously see what he can do going forward. If he's the starting quarterback, I want Joe Flacco to do well. So hopefully he can do well. And when Joe Flacco plays well, he is fun to watch. He can sling it. He is a fun quarterback to watch. So, hopefully we get that kind of level from Joe Flacco, at least in week 1 against the Bengals, and then hopefully going forward as well. And as well, with Flacco at quarterback, we should hopefully see, a similar level of production from David Njoku, that we saw in 2023 in his, the stint with Flacco. They have great chemistry with each other. They're clearly friends off the field, and, they have a great friendship, and hopefully that can turn into a great partnership again this season. When he's at his best, Njoku is one of the best and most fun tight ends to watch in the NFL. Someone as athletic as him, his kind of body type at the tight end position, when he's playing at his best, he really is fun to watch. So hopefully with Flacco as the starting quarterback, we can get the best version of David Njoku, and we can all enjoy watching David Njoku hurdle some guys, stiff arm some guys, pick up a crosser from 5 yards and then go run it 25 yards, bundling over guys. We love to watch it. Can't wait. And hopefully that's what we get from Njoku this year with Flacco. And, showing some love for the wide receivers as well, I suppose. I don't think they're going to get much love this in most of these kind of projections and outlets. When people are previewing the Browns, the wide receiver room is probably the room that is, going to get the most criticism. But, I do feel a lot better about this room than I did, even a month ago, and maybe even a couple of weeks ago. It starts with Jerry Jeudy, who, last year was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL from a production standpoint. This is someone that had over 1,200 yards, pretty much broke a lot of Browns receiving records. We got him for $17 million, a year. Fantastic contract to get ahead of. We've seen all the deals lately that have been happening. What a deal that was. If he can repeat again this year, then he's already with last season probably over, gone over that contract and played above that contract. But if we get another year like that, then that just is even more so. And Cedric Tillman and Jamari Thrash, we haven't seen a lot from these guys, but these are young guys that Cedric Tillman was a 3rd round pick. Jamari Thrash has looked impressive in preseason. He looks like he's taking a jump. A lot of people around the team, Nathan Zagura in particular, he's highlighted Jamari Thrash a lot. He's highlighted him as the biggest, the guy that's improved the most from last year to this year. So while a lot of people on the outside might think, these two guys aren't anything, if they have leaps that the Browns clearly think that they can, then those guys with obviously Isaiah Bond, Gage Laverdane, DeAndre Carter, even though we probably won't see him much, in taking snaps at wide receiver, more just as returner, and then of course Malachi Corley as well, who's probably going to find a way onto this roster. So this wide receiver room is shaping up to look better than it did, 6 months ago, 4 months ago, 2 months ago, and even a few weeks ago. So, and I'm excited to see what those young guys can do, because as I said, when you've got a young guy that, can take that jump and play well, of course, on a rookie contract, that's massive. So excited to see what those guys can do. And as Isaiah Bonds, they've handed him number 16, and you don't bring someone in the last week of preseason and only play him in the snaps that you played the starters in that preseason game, then give him number 16 if you're not going to use him. So I do expect Isaiah Bond to be a feature in this offense early and probably going forward. They clearly have high hopes for him in this offense, and probably should have mentioned this one earlier, but the run game, obviously we're going back to Kevin Stefanski's offense. Hopefully we get Quinshon Judkins back. We did have a report from Mary Kay that he could be back as soon as early this week, and if he is, he might even be in play in week 1. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, getting him back would be great as well. But they did claim Raheem Sanders. They brought in someone that can complement the other guys other than Quinshon in that room. Those more kind of slightly smaller change of pace guys in Dylan Thompson and Jerome Ford. So even if Quinshon isn't back, I expect this run game to be better than we have seen last year and even the year before. I've talked about it most of the offseason. The Browns had to invest in the run game. They invested in the offensive line somewhat, invested massively in the running back room. So, I expect this run game to be a lot better. And, Raheem Sanders, I watched an interview of him earlier, and he was talking about how he strictly only ran outside zone at high school. So hopefully he can still do that, because obviously that's what we're going to see a lot of from the Browns. So, I said it in my last video, I do think we will see Raheem Sanders make some plays for this team this year. And obviously, but, the biggest thing is getting Quinshon Judkins back. They drafted him at 36. They were happy to let Nick Chubb go and draft Quinshon at 36, pretty much the same spot they got Chubb at in 2018. That's clearly the move, the heir apparent. He's the guy that was supposed to come in and be the number 1 back ahead of all of these other guys. So the sooner we get him back, then obviously the better, because he's the number 1 back in that room. But overall, even if we do have to, he does have to miss some time. I do think we will see a better run game this year, and I'm just excited to see a much improved run game than what we've seen the last couple of years of this team not even be able to run the ball. That obviously coincides with the offensive line as well. I'm excited to see some of these young guys. Does Luke Whippler come in at any point? Zach Zinter, can we get any development out of him? Has not looked good throughout training camp early on. Was able to kind of somewhat save himself and get a roster spot towards the end. DeJuan Jones obviously starting at left tackle. Can he show enough to be the franchise's left tackle going forward? If he plays well this year and shows you that answers the biggest question on the offensive line going forward. That's your left tackle, and then obviously you build from there. This is this is the last year we will see these kind of starters, the bone of this offensive line, Jack Conklin, Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller, all play together. So, how do they go out? How do they, I'm sure they will want to play well and their last time as a unit, as a whole, try and play as well as they can. And, of course, the Browns made some moves as well, bringing some rookies on to the practice squad. As we've seen with the injuries the last few years at the offensive line position, I'm sure one of those guys is going to find a way of starting a game this year. Another young player to obviously look at, another young player to develop. So excited to see what we get out of the offensive line this year. That, I'm not that high on it. I'm not saying this offensive line is going to be 2020, of course. I do think it will be better, but I think, we're going to have to wait and see them in an actual full game setting with obviously Joel Bitonio playing as well until we can make that judgment. But I'm still excited to see it nonetheless. And as well, of course, speaking of the rookies, Dylan Gabriel, Shadur Sanders, their development, with the turnover in the Browns quarterback room the last few years, I don't think any of us would be shocked if we saw one, if not both guys play in a game this year. So, seeing how those guys develop, they're the two rookies. They're the two guys that we wanted on the roster at that 2 and 3 spot. So that's what's happened. Let's see how the season goes with those two guys. Do they show us anything? Is one of them able to come in and convince the Browns not to draft a quarterback next year? It's probably unlikely, but it's the NFL. You never know. Brock Purdy was the last pick in the draft. So excited to see what we get out of those guys' development. And, of course, if they do get thrown in the fire at any point, always exciting to watch your rookie quarterback play. No matter how bad it gets earlier, obviously, as bad it gets as the more you go on, maybe not so much. But, of course, looking forward to seeing those guys. All the rookies and young players in general, to be honest, it's always good to see, these are the future essentially of your team. These are the next guys up. So just seeing any season your rookies and young players play well is of course exciting. And, this year in particular, I think the Browns have 18 or 19 players in their first or second year. So that's probably the most they've had in quite a long time. A lot of young players on this team, which, you could argue that might lead to their downfall because there's a lot of players with not that much experience. But I think if you can get a good blend of young players and veterans, that can work really well. It worked for the Rams the last couple of years. And, a lot of young guys, they've not seen some of the bad stuff that the Cleveland Browns, they've not been through 0-16 like David Njoku and Joel Bitonio and Myles Garrett have, so they don't quite have the scars. They've got nothing to lose. Let's see what these guys can do, and obviously see what they can do moving forward and show what they have and show what this team has at certain positions and with certain players, in those young players going forward. Obviously, the London game in Vikings, surprised this one did come up even earlier, but obviously I will be there. I will be at the London games to watch the Browns week 5 against the Vikings. I know probably a lot of guys over in America, guys and gals, annoyed that this game is like 9 in the morning in America, which I understand. But for me, get to see the Cleveland Browns for the first time in London. I didn't see them in 2017 because I was poor and not able to afford it at the time. So finally able to see the Browns in London. That's going to be great for me. Anyone that is going to the game, drop a comment, drop me a DM on my socials. I'm trying to meet as many people as possible at the game, but obviously excited for that one, not just the game itself, but to meet as many Browns fans as I can. And just kind of, have a great weekend down in London with the Cleveland Browns for the London games. Obviously, very, very excited for that one. Harold Fanning, didn't mention him. I should have probably mentioned him with David Njoku. It's obviously kind of goes in with the young players as well, but excited to see Harold Fanning this year. This was one of my biggest draft crushes all year. Someone that I think even during the season, I was talking about how the Browns have to draft. Just completely fell in love with him as a prospect. This was one of those guys that I just this year had to be a Brown. The Browns actually did it. They actually drafted him. Very rare that happens. When you have those guys, they actually end up drafting them. So I'm, of course, excited to see what Harold Fanning can do this year on and off events that he's going to see a lot of the field because, the Browns are going to run a lot of 12 personnel. They're going to run a lot more heavy sets under Kevin Stefanski's offense. So obviously excited to see what he can do. And he's a fun player. A very, very fun player in college. If that can translate into the NFL, then just a very, very fun player to watch. But, that's probably all of them. I'm probably am missing some, but, there's a lot of things to be excited about this year for the Cleveland Browns, in my opinion. I am incredibly excited. Yes, I'm a bit of a sicko. I'm excited about stuff when the Browns are terrible, regardless. So I understand that. But there are plenty of things this year that even if the Browns season isn't going that great, if it is going that great as well, it doesn't really matter. There are things to be excited about, things to look forward to, and things that I think are going to contribute to us having fun throughout the season and enjoying the Cleveland Browns when they play, because it's always a pleasure to watch your favourite football team. Whenever you can sit there, it doesn't matter if win or lose, it does. But of course, when you can sit there with your mates watching football on Sunday, we wouldn't change that for the world, win or lose, but hopefully win. But no, all seriousness, lots of things to be excited about. And in the end of the day, if all else fails, and the Browns do go 2-15, they have 2 first-round picks. And Lenoris Sellers is coming out next year. I'm just saying. No, I'm not going to talk about any draft stuff until unless the Browns are terrible and there is a point where we're sitting there terrible. But had to throw that in the air in the end because obviously my QB1 after this weekend of college football, I think showed why he's my QB1. But again, that's a conversation for another day. Guys, that would do it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. If you do enjoy my content, then please drop this video a like, hit that subscribe button. It's free, but it really, really helps out my channel. You can check the links in the description to see where you can follow and interact with me on social media. As I always say, I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and even if that means I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. Have an amazing week. Game week, week 1, we're back. Enjoy it as much as you can. But most importantly, go Browns.